Is this on? Yes, definitely on. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Foiling the Dropout Trap, Completion Grant Practices for Retaining and Graduating Students. I just, like I said, wanted to welcome everybody here. I'm going to ask folks to sign in on the sign-in sheet. I just wanted to basically give you a 1 or 2 minutes sort of background of what this is. And then I'm going to introduce Patricia, who's going to facilitate the event this morning. But this was a project that is part of a bigger project that we are doing in partnership with the Lumina Foundation and Great Lakes Higher Education Guarantee Corporation, where it's had a sort of a 3-stage trajectory. The first thing that we did was we worked with Patricia, who interviewed 10 institutions across the country who do retention and or completion grants. Because what we wanted to do is we wanted to get an understanding of how they worked, why they worked, what we needed to understand about getting them to work. And then she put together a report, which is still in draft form, and we will be launching it in about a month, but the executive summary is available in your folders. Part 2 is to take what we've learned from that experience and have a workshop, which is what we're all here today to do. And then at the end of that experience, we'll have some seed funds for those who are interested in applying and starting up a program similar to this on their own campus. And we'll talk about this at the very end of the event. And there'll be still time for questions along the way. So with that, I am very pleased to welcome Patricia Steele, who is the founder and principal of Higher Ed Insight, who's going to be a facilitator for the bulk of the workshop. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thanks for being here up early and caffeinated. It's wonderful. I'm sorry that I'm so far away from all of you, but it's lovely to see all your faces. Can you hear me just okay? Great. No, this is fine, but thank you. I might use that later on when I'm facilitating the Q&A. Since I haven't met many of you, I thought I'd just take a minute to tell you a little bit about what I do. My company, Higher Ed Insight, is based in Washington, D.C., and I pull together teams of researchers to support research. Sometimes that is third-party evaluation, sometimes it's strategic planning, but it's basically anyone in the higher ed field that needs external researchers to come in and support them in answering questions that they need answered to do their work better. We tend to focus on issues related to college access and success with a particular focus on underrepresented students. So that's a little bit about me. And in my work, I often get asked to study lots of program interventions in higher education, and I have to say that completion grants is really an exciting one to me, particularly because I come from a financial aid research background, but because, as many of you know, these grants are a really potentially impactful tool. I heard many stories from people indicating that these grants literally made the difference between a student completing and not completing, and sometimes just a few $100s made that difference. And so while we don't yet have hard statistical evidence to demonstrate that impact, I think that that potential is there, and I think that we have many stories that have really articulated that for us very clearly. So when Sherry and APLU approached us to learn more about this tool for retention, we were very happy to dig in. My colleague Chad Anderson did this work with me. He can't be with us today, but I wanted to acknowledge him. And I'll just say that after we conducted these 10 interviews, one thing that became very clear is that for many of these campuses, this was really a move of last resort. It was campuses who were dealing with students who've expired their student aid eligibility, and there's nothing left to do. They would leave the institution without the funds. So in some cases, that's where the idea emerged. What also became really clear is that the concept of retention or completion grants on all of these campuses was very closely tied to a much larger, really substantive cultural shift on campus centered on students and student success. And particularly in the financial aid arena, where maybe some offices are very focused on packaging aid and getting students in the door, many campuses articulated that this was really a shift to focusing on packaging aid for getting students out the door and helping them to complete, and that is a really exciting direction. Here's just a few things that we heard. Almost everyone we spoke to indicated that completion grants were a tool. They alone were not enough, but that there was a growing student-centered focus on their campus. Most of the 10 campuses indicated that key campus leaders were engaged and committed to creating a culture where they dedicated resources to this issue. Several campuses spoke about specific efforts going on to analyze and identify bottlenecks on their campus, which is really exciting. You know, where are we losing students? We also heard about the creation of different types of early alert systems and other timely supports, like advising, tutoring, financial counseling. And for some, these completion grants are one of those tools. We heard mention of a commitment to evaluating efforts, which was really exciting to me. It wasn't just about doing the work, but actually evaluating which efforts were the most impactful. Though we also heard many say they wish they had more time and resources for this kind of important evaluation. And lastly, we also heard some talk about student success efforts that were really deeply connected to the local communities, and I'm excited to have you hear about that from some of our panelists today. So this is the list of campuses we interviewed. I just wanted to be sure to identify them because it's really not easy to put a program out there like this for general consumption. Many of these institutions have just created these in the last few years. So, you know, it's brand new, they're getting up and running, there's a little trial and error, everyone makes mistakes. So the willingness of these campuses to be transparent and share their experience with us is really providing a tremendous learning opportunity, so I just wanted to be sure to thank them. So this is how we defined the grants. It's a little bit of a loose definition because there's quite a bit of variation amongst the campuses we included. But essentially, we define these completion grants, retention grants, or gap grants, they're sometimes called, as something that are designed to target students who have genuine unmet financial need and have used all other aid or close to it, are on track for graduation in the next semester or year, and have an outstanding financial gap that will compel them to drop out. And these are the key questions we were trying to answer. You know, how do these grants work on different campuses? What are the data people are gathering? How are they tracking outcomes for the recipients? To what extent have these grant programs yielded successful outcomes? And then, you know, what are the opportunities for replicating and improving upon the grant programs that are already there? And I'll just end here. I wanted to offer up some categorization of these programs. There's really quite a mix, and some are a little bit of the various categories, but we wanted to try to put some order, some way of describing them, and these are the four we came up with. The reactive model is one approach that really disrupts a student on the verge of stopping out. Maybe the student doesn't register for class by a predetermined date, or they drop a course due to lack of payment, or completely stop out of for the semester, and then they're reached out to by the financial aid office in the next term. So there's a variety of approaches underneath the reactive model. We also identified what we call the skin in the game model. So this is one that puts the onus of responsibility or risk on the student. One example is a campus that offers the grant in the form of a loan, and then if the student doesn't fulfill the predetermined requirements, the grant turns into a loan. If they do complete their requirements and they graduate, then it's a grant and they don't have to repay it. So we call this the skin in the game model. Another is the preemptive or early alert model. This differs a little bit from the definition I described earlier, but this is basically students at risk of stopping out are identified and tracked and supported early on. The idea is to provide enough financial aid so that they don't reach that point where they have unmet need later on. And then finally, the two-pronged model is really one where institutions offer grants to help students early, and they also use it to help students in danger of dropping out. Just wanted to provide my contact information for anyone that needed it. and move us on to the next phase of the day. So keeping in mind that student success culture, we really wanted to start the day off with a discussion about this very topic. So for this next 10 or 15 minutes, we wanted to give you an opportunity to work right in your tables where you're seated today and answer this question. What are the core elements of a student success culture? What do you think they should be? Some of you may be on campuses where this is not very strong, and this is an opportunity to discuss it. And after a few minutes, also take the time to introduce yourselves and maybe mention where you are with regard to completion grants on your own campus. And afterwards, we'll take a moment to have each table report back on these two questions, which I'll leave up here. What is one critical issue for ensuring student success on campus, and what is the biggest obstacle?